The extreme heat apocalypse is coming. You have three choices. What will you choose? Always choose an indestructible, heat-proof fortress stocked with endless supplies. B. A Gatling machine gun equipped with infinite ammo. C. Summon a top-tier maid who is absolutely loyal to you. I already knew that in 1 hour, the extreme heat apocalypse would descend and humanity's living environment would drastically deteriorate. Order and rules will gradually collapse. In the apocalypse, safety and food are the most critical issues. I choose A. The very next second, the rented apartment, before my eyes began to undergo an earth-shattering transformation. I watched with my own eyes as the mottled walls were covered by a layer of silver-white metal, exuding a cold, metallic gleam. The ordinary window glass cracked and rapidly thickened, turning into the kind of bulletproof glass you'd see at a bank counter. It even automatically applied a tinted film, transparent from the inside, but pitch black from the outside. The ceiling fan above me dropped, but before it could hit the ground, it turned into specks of light and vanished. In its place was an invisible central air conditioning system. A blast of freezing air instantly swept through the room, wiping away all the sweltering heat from my body. The room's temperature plummeted from over 30 degrees, finally stabilizing right at 18 degrees Celsius. I walked over to the wall and touched it, cold and solid. Knocking on it produced a dull thud. It was harder than steel plating. I turned on the faucet. Crystal clear tap water gushed out. I hit the light switch, and the whole room lit up like broad daylight. This is absolutely insane! I couldn't help but exclaim as I discovered that the previously empty storage room and refrigerator were now completely fully stocked. Inside the fridge, from sodas to imported beers, from tomahawk steaks to Boston lobsters, it had everything. In the storage room, flour, cooking oil, all kinds of canned goods, self-heating hot pots, and compressed biscuits were piled up like a small mountain. I roughly estimated that these supplies were enough to feed me alone for several years. Renovation complete. Wishing you a pleasant stay. The system's voice echoed once more, then faded into silence. I checked my phone. 45 minutes left until the apocalypse. Although I was safe and had no shortage of supplies, as someone with a mild hoarding habit, I still felt it wasn't enough. Water and ice in an extreme heat apocalypse would definitely be the hardest of hard currencies. I immediately opened all the food delivery and shopping apps on my phone and started ordering like crazy. Hello? Is this the water station? I want 100 jugs of purified water. Yeah, the biggest ones you have. What do you mean you can't deliver? I'll pay extra. I'll add $50 for delivery per jug. Deliver it right now. Hello? Is this the supermarket? All the ice cubes in your store, bagged and boxed. I'll take them all. And all the drinks too. Yes, all of them. Money is no object. You have to deliver it within half an hour. I was practically screaming into the phone. Very soon, the first water delivery guy came panting up the stairs, carrying the jugs. He was drenched in sweat. His clothes were so soaked you could wring water out of them. As soon as he walked in, he started complaining. Oh man, buddy, it's way too hot today. I feel like it's gotta be 40 degrees out there. Just running this one order for you, I feel like my soul is about to leave my body. Damn. I didn't have time to chat with him. I scanned his code, paid immediately, and urged him to hurry up and bring the rest. Following him were the ice delivery guys, drink delivery guys, and snack couriers, an endless stream of delivery workers. The doorway of my tiny rented apartment suddenly became as bustling as a marketplace. Everyone was complaining about the weather, sweating profusely. They looked at me like I was an idiot. I couldn't be bothered to explain. I just kept rushing them. Time ticked by, second by second. I stared at the countdown timer on my phone, my heart racing uncontrollably. The moment the countdown hit 0, the already glaring sunlight outside the window seemed to crank up several notches in brightness. It became blindingly intense, as if it wanted to scorch the very earth. Immediately after, an inhuman, blood-curdling scream echoed from downstairs, shattering the peace of the entire residential complex. The apocalypse had arrived. That scream acted like a signal. One after another, screams erupted from every corner of the neighborhood. I walked over to the window and looked out through the thick, specialized glass. Downstairs, a delivery guy who had just finished his route was getting on his e-bike to leave. Suddenly, as if all the bones had been ripped from his body, he collapsed limply onto the ground. His skin turned red and blistered at a visible rate. His whole body convulsed on the scorching pavement. Not far away, under the shade of a tree, a few elderly people who had been enjoying the breeze also let out terrified shrieks. One of them tried to run into the building's corridor, but before taking even a few steps, they collapsed to the ground, wailing in agony. The whole world seemed to have turned into a giant steamer. A faint smell of burning flesh seemed to linger in the air. I watched this hellish scene without a single ripple of emotion in my heart. I turned around and grabbed a cold can of Coke from the fridge. With a hiss, I popped the tab, tilted my head back, and took a huge gulp. The icy liquid slid down my throat, bringing the refreshing tingle of carbonation. Ah, that hits the spot. I lay back comfortably on the sofa, enjoying the steady 18-degree temperature. Listening to the growing chorus of screams and cries outside, I felt like I was sitting in a VIP lounge, enjoying a grand apocalyptic symphony. Right at that moment, the system's voice echoed in my mind again. The apocalypse has officially descended. The check-in function has been activated. You may perform one standard check-in per day. Check-in reward. Choose one of 3. Detected that the host has completed the first check-in after the apocalypse's descent. Activating bonus reward. Do you wish to summon your first maid immediately? Summon a maid? Option C from the previous starter pack was the top-tier maid summoning card. Now, it's showing up as a bonus reward. This system is actually pretty humane. Yes, summon, maid. Summoning function activated, proceeding with matchmaking based on the host's subconscious preferences. Matchmaking successful. Target, Lin Manman. Identity, Campus Belle of Jiangcheng University, the host's schoolmate. Current location, outside the host's door. Status, severe heat stroke. Dehydrated, on the verge of shock. An image of a tall, beautiful girl instantly popped into my head. She really was the Campus Belle. Her suitors could line up from the south gate all the way to the north gate of the campus. Who would have thought the tables would turn like this? And now, the system has delivered her right to my doorstep. Just as I was lost in thought, a frantic but weak knocking came from the door. I walked over and turned on the door security monitor. On the screen, a red, swollen face covered in sweat and tears was practically pressed against the camera. It was Lin Manman. The designer dress she was wearing was completely soaked, clinging tightly to her body, accentuating her alluring curves. But right now, no one was in the mood to appreciate that. She looked like she had just been fished out of the water and then thrown straight onto a roasting fire. Her lips were cracked and dry, her eyes unfocused. She was holding on purely by her will to survive. Is anyone in there? Help me, please. Help me. It's so hot, I'm going to die. Her voice was as hoarse as sandpaper, filled with despair and agony. I didn't open the door right away. Instead, I pressed the intercom button and spoke in an incredibly cold tone. Lin Manman. Hearing my voice from outside like a drowning person catching a lifeline, she jerked her head up and pounded on the door with all her remaining strength. Su Chen, is that you? Su Chen, hurry, open the door and let me in. I'm dying. I'm begging you, please. She actually remembered my name. How rare. I leaned against the cold metal door, took a leisurely sip of Coke, and slowly said, You want to come in? Lin Manman cried and screamed. I do. Just let me in. I'll do whatever you want. Whatever I want. I repeated, my voice dripping with implication. Yes, anything. Please, very well. I nodded. From today onward, you are no longer the arrogant Campus Belle. Nor are you my schoolmate. You are nothing but my maid. Understand? There was a moment of silence outside, as if my words had completely stunned her. But I didn't rush her. I knew she had no choice. The temperature outside was still rising. Every second she stayed out there was a step closer to death. Sure enough, a few seconds later, Lin Manman's sobbing, humiliated voice came through the speaker. I understand. I'll be your maid, please. Just give me a sip of water. Words aren't enough. Sign this. Then I'll let you in and give you ice water. It was a master-servant contract. The terms were simple and brutal. The core condition was that Party B, Lin Manman, voluntarily became the private property of Party A, Su Chen. She must unconditionally obey all of Party A's commands and never betray him. If violated, her soul would suffer the agony of being burned by hellfire. Lin Manman stared at the glowing words floating in midair, her body trembling even more violently. She probably thought she was hallucinating. But her survival instinct overrode everything else. She shakily reached out her hand. On the virtual screen, right at Party B's signature line, she signed her name through her tears. Master Servant contract successfully signed. Maid, Lin Manman. Loyalty, 10. The moment the system notification chimed, I hit the button to open the door. The heavy metal door slid open silently. A blast of cold air conditioning rushed out. Lin Manman looked as if she had just seen the light of heaven. She practically crawled inside. As soon as she crossed the threshold, she collapsed onto the cool floor, gulping down huge breaths of the 18-degree air, letting out a moan of pure relief. I closed the door, sealing off the extreme heat and hellish screams outside. I looked down at her lying on the floor, like admiring a newly acquired trophy. Welcome, my first maid. Lin Manman lay on the floor for a long time before struggling to sit up. When she finally got a clear look at the inside of the apartment, she was completely dumbfounded. This is... She looked around, her eyes wide with shock. The cool, comfortable temperature, the lights shining as bright as day, the modern, pristine interior, and the dazzling array of drinks in the fridge not far away. All of this formed a stark contrast to the desperate, screaming, scorching world outside. If this wasn't heaven, what was? "How is your place like this?" she muttered, her voice full of confusion and bewilderment. I didn't answer her question. I simply grabbed a bottle of mineral water from the fridge, unscrewed the cap, and walked over to her. Like offering water to a puppy, I held it up to her lips. The moment Lin Manman saw the water, her eyes lit up. Throwing all her pride out the window, she immediately leaned in, parted her cracked lips, and gulped it down greedily. The bottle was emptied in seconds. Only then did she seem to come back to life, some color returning to her face. "Thank you," she panted, looking at me with an incredibly complex expression. There was gratitude, fear, and a hint of unconcealable humiliation. I ignored her feelings and said coldly, "Remember your place. This is what you've earned. Now go take a shower, change into some clean clothes. I don't like my maid smelling bad." I pointed toward the bathroom, then grabbed a clean bathrobe from the storage room and tossed it to her. Lin Manman bit her lip, silently picked up the bathrobe and walked into the bathroom with her head down. Hearing the sound of running water from inside, I was in a fantastic mood. The feeling of conquering a girl who used to look down on me was even more refreshing than drinking an ice-cold Coke. However, this pleasant feeling didn't last long. A pounding on the door, even more violent than Lin Manman's earlier knocking, echoed through the room. "Open up! Whoever's inside, open the damn door! I know you're in there! It's boiling to death out here! And you're inside enjoying the act! Have you got no conscience? Bring out your water and supplies so everyone can share, or else we're calling the cops." I frowned, walked over to the door, and turned on the monitor. I saw 7 or 8 people gathered outside, led by 2 thugs who lived upstairs. They usually just loafed around doing nothing, but right now they were gripping a crowbar, glaring aggressively at my door. Behind them were a few other neighbors. Among them was an old man I remembered very clearly. This old guy was a notorious hypocrite in the neighborhood. He loved taking the moral high ground and pointing fingers at everyone else. If someone parked slightly out of line, or didn't sort their trash properly, he just had to stick his nose in, always lecturing people. Right now, he had his hands on his hips, yelling at my door, with a look of absolute self-righteousness. "Whose brat is in there? Open the door, right now. These are special times. Everyone needs to unite and help each other. Hoarding all those good resources for yourself is way too selfish. Open the door and let everyone in to escape the heat." I looked at the ugly faces of these people on the screen and laughed. What a bunch of naive idiots. They still hadn't realized that the times had changed. Law and morality were nothing but garbage now. Fists were the only rule. System. Check-in. Today's check-in successful. Option A, a box of tomahawk steaks. Option B, physical attributes doubled. Option C, tactical crossbow mastery. I choose C. Selection successful. Congratulations to the host for acquiring tactical crossbow mastery. A massive flood of information instantly surged into my brain about the structure, shooting techniques, and trajectory calculations of a crossbow. It felt as if I had practiced tens of thousands of times, carved deep into my mind. At the same time, a sleek, menacing black tactical crossbow and a quiver of bolts, gleaming with a cold light, suddenly appeared in my hands. I expertly drew the bowstring, loaded a bolt, and pushed the heavy metal door open just a crack, about 10 centimeters. A wave of scorching heat instantly rushed in, forcing the thugs and neighbors outside to stumble backward. The blonde thug leading the pack saw me, immediately raised his crowbar, arrogantly pointed it at me, and cursed. "You little punk, finally got the guts to show your face, huh? If you know what's good for you, open the door and hand over all your food and drinks." Before he could even finish his sentence, a sharp thwip tore through the air. I pulled the trigger. The razor-sharp bolt shot precisely through the crack in the door and buried itself deep into the blonde thug's thigh. He let out a blood-curdling shriek like a slaughtered pig. His legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees. Fresh blood instantly dyed his pants red. Ah, my leg! Everyone was struck dumb by the sudden turn of events. The hypocritical old man snapped out of it, pointed right at my nose, and started screaming. You damn brat! How dare you attack someone? That's illegal. I'm calling the cops to have you arrested. I let out a cold laugh, reached my hand through the crack in the door, grabbed him by the collar, yanked him forward, and delivered a resounding slap right across his face. I put a lot of force into that slap. His wrinkled face swelled up visibly, and blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. He was slapped silly, clutching his face and staring at me in sheer disbelief. I leaned in close and spoke in a voice only the two of us could hear. Coldly, I said, "Old man, listen closely. The apocalypse is here. My rules are the only rules. The cops? They're probably roasted meat by now. If you dare say one more useless word, the next bolt won't just be going into a leg." With that, I shoved him hard, knocking him to the ground. My icy gaze swept over everyone else at the door as I enunciated every word. Anyone who dares take one more step toward my door dies. The remaining neighbors and the other thug looked at the blonde guy screaming on the ground, then at the pitch-black crossbow in my hand. They turned pale with terror and scrambled away from my door on their hands and knees. The heat wave and the pain would soon teach them what true despair meant. I slammed the door shut. The world was quiet once again. Just then, Lin Manman stepped out of the bathroom. She was wearing the oversized bathrobe, her hair dripping wet. Seeing the crossbow in my hand and the blood on the floor near the door, she went pale with fright. What happened? I didn't even look at her. I stored the crossbow back into the system space and coldly ordered her, "Go run the bath. I want to take a shower." Lin Manman trembled at my freezing tone. Seeing my emotionless face and connecting it to the blood by the door and the commotion from earlier, she probably guessed what had happened. Fear completely overpowered her shyness and reluctance. She didn't dare ask any more questions. She just lowered her head and replied with a voice as quiet as a mosquito, "Yes," then obediently turned around and went back into the bathroom. Soon, the sound of running water came from inside. I nodded in satisfaction. That's more like it. A maid should act like a maid. I walked over to the door. The hot air that had rushed in when I opened it had already been blown away by the powerful cold breeze of the central act. I squatted down and looked at the dark red drops of blood on the floor, frowning in disgust. When Lin Manman came out, I pointed at the bloodstains. "I don't want to see any filth in my house. Clean it!" Lin Manman's face grew even paler. Looking at the blood, her body trembled slightly. "What? Can't do it? No." She hurriedly shook her head, gritted her teeth, found a rag and a bucket of water, and squatted down to scrub it clean bit by bit, watching the once unattainable campus belle, now acting like a literal servant girl, kneeling on the floor wiping up blood for me. An indescribable sense of satisfaction welled up inside me. This is power. This is the apocalypse. It can turn a goddess into a slave, and it can take someone from the bottom of society like me and turn him into a lord who holds the power of life and death over others. I ignored her and walked straight into the bathroom. The bathtub was already filled with hot water at the perfect temperature. Lin Manman had even added a few drops of bathwash, filling the air with a faint, refreshing scent. I lay back comfortably in the tub. The warm water enveloped my body, and my tense nerves finally relaxed. Everything that happened today was more thrilling than my entire 20-something years of life combined. The system, the apocalypse, killing people. I closed my eyes and began to take stock of my gains. An absolutely safe fortress, an obedient campus belle maid, and a tactical crossbow skill with perfect accuracy. It was a flawless start, but it still wasn't enough. Those two thugs just now were merely an appetizer. As time goes on, the people outside will only get crazier and more unhinged. I have to get stronger. After my bath, I changed into dry clothes and took a premium sirloin steak and a bottle of red wine out of the fridge. I turned on the induction cooker in the kitchen and started pan-frying the steak myself. Lin Manman had already scrubbed the floor spotless. Right now, she was standing awkwardly in the middle of the living room like an elementary schooler who had made a mistake, not knowing what to do with her hands. "Come here." She hesitated for a moment, then took small steps toward me. The steak sizzled in the pan, instantly filling the air with a rich, savory aroma. Lin Manman's stomach betrayed her, letting out two loud rumbles. She quickly clutched her stomach, her face flushing bright red. Since the apocalypse began, she had only had one bottle of water. She was already starving. I ignored her and plated the perfectly seared steak. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat at the dining table, and leisurely enjoyed the tender, juicy steak paired with the rich red wine. It was truly a feast fit for a king. As I ate, I watched Lin Manman standing beside me, timidly swallowing her saliva. Her eyes were filled with a desperate craving for food, but she didn't dare ask. That was exactly what I wanted. I wanted her to understand that in this house, I am the only rule. Everything she gets depends entirely on my mood. After finishing the steak, I wiped my mouth with a napkin and finally looked at her. Hungry? Yes. Want to eat? Yes. She nodded again, her eyes practically glowing. I pointed at the trash can. Take out the trash, wash the dishes, then go to the storage room, grab a pack of instant noodles, and cook it yourself. The light in Lean Man Man's eyes instantly dimmed. She looked at the leftover steak bone on my plate, then looked at me, her eyes full of grievance and resentment. Why did I get to eat steak and drink wine while she only got instant noodles? But I didn't give her a chance to argue. My gaze turned cold. Or you can choose not to eat. Those words were like a bucket of ice water, extinguishing every little spark of rebellion in her heart. In the end, she chose to compromise, silently clearing the table. Then, she went to the storage room and grabbed the most basic pack of braised beef noodles. Hearing the sound of boiling water from the kitchen, I leaned back on the sofa and opened the system interface. It was time for today's standard check-in. Today's check-in has been refreshed. Please choose your reward from the following 3 options. Option A, 10,000 tons of ice cubes. Option B, S-rank made summoning token. Option C, physical attributes enhanced 5-fold. Looking at these 3 choices, I fell deep into thought. 10,000 tons of ice cubes. In an extreme heat apocalypse, the value of this would be higher than gold. If I put it out there, it would be enough to make any survivor base risk their lives for me. But the problem was, my tiny, rented apartment had absolutely no room for it. Even though the system had storage space, 10,000 tons would take up way too much room. The S-rank made summoning token sounded amazing, but I already had Lien Man Man. I wasn't short on people to boss around for now. Plus, the randomness of this item was too high. What if I summoned some stubborn, disobedient girl and had to waste effort training her? Finally, there was the 5-fold physical enhancement. This option was the most direct and practical. No matter how sturdy a fortress is, there's always a chance it could be breached. Even the most loyal maid can run into trouble. The only real security is my own strength. With a stronger body, I can better protect my assets and seize more resources. I choose C. Physique enhancement, 5x, selection successful. Beginning enhancement, a warm current, much stronger than the one from when I got crossbow mastery, surged from my heart and quickly spread throughout my entire body. I felt like every cell in my body was being torn apart and regenerated by this warmth. I've never felt so alive. My bones are hardening, my muscles are bulging, my blood is boiling. An unprecedented sense of power flooded my limbs. I could even hear the powerful, thunderous beat of my own heart and feel the tiny dust particles in the air. I instinctively clenched my fists, my knuckles cracking loudly. I feel like I could kill a bull with a single punch. This feeling of being filled with power is incredible. Just then, Lin Man Man brought out a steaming bowl of instant noodles. From the kitchen, she saw the bulging muscles on my body and the sharp glint in my eyes. Startled, she nearly dropped the bowl of noodles in her hands. What's wrong with you? I didn't answer, just stared at her, the corner of my mouth curling into a smirk. It seems that as I've gotten stronger, certain needs have grown stronger too. Looking at this beautiful maid, fresh from a shower and wearing only a loose bathrobe, curves barely hidden, I suddenly had a new idea. I stood up and walked toward her, step by step. My stare terrified Lin Manman, and she instinctively backed away. What do you want? I walked right up to her, snatched the bowl of noodles from her hands, and casually placed it on a nearby table. Then, I grabbed her chin, forcing her to look up into my eyes. As my maid, besides laundry and cooking, what else do you think you should be doing? The color drained from Lin Manman's face. She obviously understood what I meant. Her once clear and proud eyes were now filled with fear and resistance. You said, as long as I worked as your maid, you would give me food and water. I did say that, but I never said that all I needed was laundry and cooking. You can't do this. We're classmates. What you're doing is illegal, classmates. I couldn't help but laugh as if I'd just heard the world's biggest joke. Lin Manman, do you still not understand the situation? Illegal. Get real. Go on, take a look outside. Do you really think there's anything called the law anymore? I let her go and pointed out the window. The temperature out there is over 140 degrees. It's not just the weather that's eating people alive out there, it's other people. Huh. Believe it or not, if you walk out that door right now, it won't be 10 minutes before you're torn to pieces by men who would bash each other's brains out for half a bottle of water. And they won't be as gentle as I am. My words hit her like a sledgehammer. She looked in the direction I was pointing. Although she couldn't see the specific scenes outside, the endless screams and agonizing cries were a constant reminder of just how terrifying the world outside had become. She said nothing more. Her body just trembled slightly. I knew. Her psychological defenses were crumbling. You can't rush things with this type of self-righteous woman. You have to slowly grind away her pride and dignity. I sat back down on the sofa, picked up the now slightly cool bowl of noodles, and began to eat slowly. Either you obediently fulfill your duties, or you go outside and take your chances. The choice is yours. After saying that, I didn't look at her again. I focused on finishing my noodles. The living room fell into a dead silence. The only sounds were me slurping my noodles and Lian Malman's soft, suppressed sobs. Time ticked by, second by second. Just as I finished the last bite and put the bowl down, Lin Man made her choice. She wiped her tears and walked over to me. Then, she slowly knelt down. Her movements were slow, filled with humiliation, but without a hint of hesitation. She looked up at me, her eyes still glistening with tears, but the resistance was gone. All that remained was numb resignation to her fate. Hearing my voice, Qinya, who was kneeling outside the door, looked as if she'd just grasped a final lifeline. Joy and hope erupted on her face. Su-chen, I'm willing to do anything. She hastily pledged her loyalty. What I need is absolute loyalty, not empty promises. I cut her off, my voice devoid of any emotion. As I finished speaking, a master-servant contract, identical to the last one, materialized out of thin air in front of Qinya. She stared at the glowing, virtual screen floating in the air. A look of shock and confusion flickered in her eyes, but she didn't hesitate for a second. She was even more decisive than Lin Man. For her daughter, forget some incomprehensible virtual contract. Even if she were told to drop dead on the spot, she wouldn't have batted an eye. She practically snatched it, extending her finger and signing her name in the Party B slot with all her might. Master-servant contract successfully signed. Maid Qinya. Loyalty 25. Status trainable. I was a little surprised. This Qinya's initial loyalty was 15 points higher than Lin Man's. Was it because she was so desperate to save her daughter that she had fewer reservations? Or was it because she's a mature woman who knows how to please a master better than that little girl, Lin Man? Interesting. Come in. The moment the contract took effect, I opened the door. Qinya scrambled inside, clutching her daughter. Slam. I slammed the door shut again, completely sealing off the heat and desperation outside. As soon as she was inside, Qinya collapsed to the floor, using the last of her strength to beg me. I didn't give her anything right away. Instead, I checked the child in her arms first. The little girl was about 5 or 6 years old. She was feverish to the point of being delirious. Her face was flushed, her breathing rapid. I touched her forehead. It was terrifyingly hot. High fever, severe dehydration. I made my diagnosis. Yes, she's been like this since noon. I didn't know what to do. Stop crying. I frowned. A woman's tears are the cheapest thing in the world. You've already signed the contract. Of course I'm going to save her. I turned and retrieved a first aid kit from the storage room. It was something the system included when it upgraded the safe house. The medical supplies inside were comprehensive. I found pediatric fever reducers, antibiotics, and a saline solution. I skillfully mixed the correct dosage. Hold her still, I ordered. Qinya quickly complied. I took out a syringe, found a vein in the little girl's arm, and gave her the injection. The whole process was as smooth as flowing water, without a moment's hesitation. Qinya watched my practiced movements, her eyes filled with astonishment. She probably never expected that her neighbor, who looked like a bookworm, would know how to administer an IV. To be honest, I don't know how I knew either. Perhaps when the system upgraded the safe house, it threw in a few minor life skills as a bonus. After administering the saline drip, I found a bottle of children's fever syrup. I pried the girl's mouth open and gave her a dose. Once that was all done, I stood up and said to Qinya, "Take her into that room to rest. You'll need to bring her temperature down physically. Use a warm cloth to wipe her down. Give her water every half hour. Before morning, the fever should break." I pointed to my bedroom. Qinya was stunned. "I'll sleep on the sofa," I said coolly. "Don't get the wrong idea. I just don't want her dying in my living room." If she dies, your value as a nurse will drop significantly. Kinya's body stiffened as she immediately understood my meaning. I saved her daughter, not because I was kind, but because her status as a nurse was still useful to me. Her daughter was just a bargaining chip to control her. Yes, master. She lowered her head and carried her daughter away. In the living room, only I and Lin Man, who had just come out of the kitchen, remained. Lin Man had clearly seen everything that just happened. She watched Kinya carry her child into the bedroom that should have been hers, then looked at herself, relegated to the utility room next to the storage closet. Her expression was complicated. Was it jealousy or relief? I couldn't be bothered to guess. From now on, your room is that storage closet. I pointed to the dark 5-square-meter room. Without my permission, you are not to leave. Lin Man's face went pale, but she still answered obediently. Yes, master. As for you, I looked toward the bedroom Chinya had just entered. I already had a new arrangement in mind. From today on, you're responsible for taking care of the child's daily needs. While you're at it, organize the medicine cabinet. Categorize all the pharmaceuticals and make me a list. I paused, then added, of course. As my maid, you will also need to perform certain other duties. I was very direct. I'm sure Kinya understood. After sending the two maids away, I could finally relax a bit. I lay on the soft sofa, feeling the immense power from my enhanced body and the exhilarating sensation of holding others' lives in my hands. A sense of peace washed over me. Two maids. One, a budding flower of youth. The other, a mature woman. One is responsible for being beautiful as a flower. The other is responsible for her professional skills. This life seems to be getting more and more interesting. I opened the system interface and glanced at the status of my two maids. Maid, Lin Manman, Loyalty 10. Event, Witnessed Master's Strength and Ruthlessness. Loyalty +5. Maid, Chinya, Loyalty 30. Event, Master saved her daughter. Loyalty +5. So, loyalty can increase like this? It seems that occasionally showing off my power and granting favors isn't a bad idea. Just as I was thinking about how to quickly raise their loyalty and unlock more functions, a loud crash suddenly echoed from outside. The entire building seemed to shake. I immediately sat up and opened the surveillance feed. On the street below, a bus, out of control and belching black smoke, was careening wildly. It finally slammed into a load-bearing wall of our building. Immediately after, a mob of ragged, fierce-looking people stormed out of the bus. They were carrying all sorts of makeshift weapons, steel pipes, farming hose, fire axes. The leader was a bald guy. In his hands, he held a homemade flamethrower. He aimed it at the locked door of a nearby apartment and pulled the trigger. A long tongue of flame shot out, instantly heating the iron door red hot. Brothers, charge! Search every single apartment! The bald guy shouldered his flamethrower, laughing arrogantly. Find all the food, water, and women, bring them all back to me. Watching the pack of wolves on the surveillance monitor, I frowned. Trouble's here. I didn't expect an organized group of thugs to show up so soon. Looking at their equipment and their actions, it's clear this wasn't a spontaneous riot, but something premeditated. The bus was reinforced with iron plates. They had all kinds of weapons, even a flamethrower, a weapon of mass destruction. They probably chose to ram our building because it's tall and has a lot of units, meaning more supplies to plunder. Master, what's happening outside? Lin Man and Chinya, startled by the loud noise, ran out of their rooms, their faces pale with terror. I didn't answer. I just pointed at the surveillance monitor. When they saw the bald man melting an iron door with a flamethrower and leading his men into the hallway, both women's faces turned ashen. I'm scared they're breaking in. Lion Manman's voice trembled. Kinya hugged herself, shaking like a leaf. What's there to be scared of? They're just a bunch of thugs. I said it casually, but inwardly, I didn't dare let my guard down. My safe room is sturdy, but I don't know how long it can hold up against something like a flamethrower. More importantly, I don't want to be exposed. Once these people discover my safe room, even if they can't break in, it will definitely lead to endless trouble. I quickly calmed down and started thinking of a countermeasure. A direct confrontation is not the best option. Although my body has been enhanced, and I'm pretty good with the crossbow, they have numbers and a flamethrower. I'm not sure I'd have the upper hand in a direct fight. My only advantage is that I'm in the shadows while they're out in the open. I looked at the monitor. The thugs had already started breaking down doors on the first floor. Agonizing screams, pleas for mercy, and women's shrieks mixed with the arrogant laughter of the thugs. The sounds came through the audio amplifier with chilling clarity. It was hell on earth. Chinya covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She seemed to be thinking about what would have happened to her and her daughter if I hadn't opened the door. Lin Manman was so scared she collapsed to the floor, hugging her head. "What are you crying for? Get up, both of you!" I snapped. My shout startled the two women. They scrambled to their feet. "Jinya!" I pointed at her. "You're a nurse. Does your hospital have any special channels for medical supplies? Or do you know of any large medical warehouses?" Jinya was taken aback, apparently not expecting me to ask such a question at a time like this. She thought for a moment, then replied, "In the cold storage in our hospital's basement, there's a large reserve of emergency drugs and vaccines, much more than any pharmacy outside." "Is that so?" "Excellent." I nodded, then turned to Lin Manman. "And you, Lin Manman? Does your father have any secret stashes? Or a safe house?" Lin Manman was stunned by my question, then shook her head. I don't know. Useless." I cursed bluntly. Lin Manman's face flushed red, but she didn't dare to talk back. I paid her no more mind. I already had a plan. I wasn't asking these questions to go out right now, but to assess their remaining value. A maid who only knows how to do laundry, cook, and warm a bed has limited value. But if she can provide me with unique information, bringing me resources I can't get from the daily check-in, then her value is limitless. The information Kinya provided about the hospital's medical storage is very useful to me. As for Lin Manman, it seems I'll have to find a way to pry all of her CEO father's secrets out of her later. "You two, stay in your rooms. Don't come out and don't make a sound," I ordered. "Kinya, go look after your daughter. Lin Manman, you go to the storage closet." "Yes, master." Neither of them dared to object and quickly returned to their rooms. Once again, I was alone in the living room. I looked at the monitor. Those thugs were working efficiently. They were already clearing the second floor. Their method of breaking down doors was simple and brutal. Either they hacked at them with fire axes or smashed them with steel pipes. If they ran into a sturdy lock, the bald guy would just use the flamethrower. My metal door is solid, but if it's targeted by that flamethrower, I'm afraid it won't last long. I can't just sit here and wait to die. I walked over to the control panel. It was a small device added after the safe room upgrade. It could control the house's entire system. I brought up the safe room's structural diagram, which clearly marked the electrical system, the water circulation system, and the ventilation system. My eyes stopped on the ventilation system. The safe room's ventilation system is independent. The intake and exhaust vents are camouflaged and hidden in the walls, but it's still connected to the building's main ducts. A plan quickly formed in my mind. I opened the system interface and mentally requested the daily check-in. Daily check-in successful. Please choose one of the following 3 rewards. A. Base upgrade package. Can expand your shelter to 300 square meters and add a small eco-cultivation area. B. Breath concealment skill. Can perfectly conceal your life signs, making you seem like an inanimate object. C. High explosive grenades. 1 box. 24 of them. Looking at these 3 options, my eyes lit up. Perfect timing is better than early timing. These 3 choices are tailor-made for my current situation. Option A, base upgrade. In the long run, this has the highest value, 300 square meters, and it even comes with a planting area. This means my survivability would increase significantly, even allowing for a certain degree of self-sufficiency. Option C, high explosive grenades. Simple and brutal. Massive destructive power. If I'm pushed into a corner, I just need to open the door and toss a few out to blow that trash to pieces. But the risk is high, and it's easy to expose my identity. It could also damage the building's structure. Then there's option B, breath concealment. This skill seems the least impressive, but right now it's exactly what I need. My plan requires me to temporarily leave this safe room. And in a hallway full of danger, being able to perfectly hide myself means having an extra trump card to save my life. I choose B, breath concealment skill. Selection successful. Congratulations to the host for acquiring the breath concealment skill. A cool stream of energy poured in from the top of my head, instantly spreading throughout my body. I felt like I was merging with my surroundings, my heartbeat, my breathing. Even the body heat I radiated seemed to be blocked by an invisible membrane. I closed my eyes, focused my mind, and the sensation became even clearer. I was like a rock, a speck of dust, completely devoid of any signs of life. Perfect. With this skill, my plan will be flawless. I took the tactical crossbow out of my system space, grabbed 10 crossbow bolts, and walked into the kitchen. In the corner of the kitchen was an inconspicuous exhaust fan connected to the public ventilation shaft. I activated the safe room's silent mode and carefully removed the exhaust fan, revealing a pitch-black hole. A stifling draft, mixed with the smell of grease and dust, drifted out from the opening. I took a deep breath, activated the breath concealment skill, and like a gecko, nimbly slipped into the ventilation shaft. The inside of the shaft was cramped, dark, and coated in grease, but my enhanced body allowed me to move through it with ease. I didn't go up. Instead, I slowly made my way down toward the lower floors. My target was the fire hydrant on the third floor. The environment inside the shaft was extremely harsh, dirty, suffocating, and reeking of stale grease. An ordinary person would probably suffocate after just a few minutes in this enclosed space. But I was different. With my body enhanced five-fold, my lung capacity and endurance in extreme environments far exceeded a normal human's. I held my breath, silently slithering down the vertical pipe like a snake. My apartment was on the 6th floor, and those thugs were currently rampaging on the 3rd. I needed to finish my setup before they came up. Very quickly, relying on the floor markers on the inner wall of the shaft, I judged that I had reached the 3rd floor. I pressed my ear against the wall and listened. The sound of doors being smashed and lecherous laughter outside grew clearer. This family's broke as hell. Only found half a box of instant noodles. Don't rush it, boss. Look at that bitch. She's pretty damn fine. Grab everything. Find the supplies first. Once we're done here, the women are all yours. The bald thug's brutal roar echoed out, immediately followed by a woman's agonizing screams and pleas. My heart didn't waver in the slightest. This is the apocalypse. The weak are prey to the strong. It's perfectly normal. Pity? That kind of thing will only get me killed. I ignored the tragedy unfolding right next to me, and relying on my memory of the hallway's layout, I found the wall corresponding to the back of the fire hydrant. I pulled a crossbow bolt from my belt and used its sharp tip to carefully carve into the inner wall of the shaft. Although the walls upgraded by the system were sturdy, places like the public ventilation shaft still retained their old brick structure. With my strength, removing a single brick wasn't difficult. I controlled my force, trying not to make a single sound. 10 minutes later, I silently pulled out a whole brick, revealing the red iron plate of the fire hydrant box outside. Through the gap left by the brick, I could see the scene in the hallway. Two thugs holding steel pipes were standing guard at the top of the stairs, smoking while warily looking up and down. Meanwhile, the bald guy was leading the others, kicking down the doors of the 3rd-floor apartments one by one. The time had come. I took out a large amount of supplies I had hoarded during my previous shopping spree from the system space. It wasn't food, nor was it water. It was cooking oil. A total of 20 jugs, the large 50-liter ones. I opened a jug, tilted it, and poured the thick, golden liquid through the gap in the wall, slowly letting it flow into the fire hydrant box. The fire hydrant box wasn't completely sealed. There was a gap at the bottom. A massive amount of cooking oil quickly leaked out of the box, running down the wall and pooling onto the floor. 1 jug, 2 jugs, 3 jugs. I poured 5 jugs in one go. The cold floor of the hallway was instantly covered in a thick, slippery layer of oil, stretching from the top of the 3rd-floor stairs all the way to the landing of the 4th floor. After finishing all this, I stored the empty jugs back into the system space, then carefully slid the brick back into place, leaving no trace behind. Next was the waiting game, waiting for the prey to step into the trap I had meticulously prepared for them. Like the most patient hunter, hidden in the dark ventilation shaft, I quietly observed everything outside through that tiny gap. Very soon, the bald guy and his men finished ransacking the 3rd floor. They had quite a haul. Everyone was carrying bags of food and water, large and small. There were also 2 terrified, trembling young women being dragged behind them like dogs. "This building's got a lot of good stuff. Way more than I thought," a tall, skinny thug said excitedly. "Let's go. Let's check out the 4th floor." The bald guy, carrying the flamethrower, took the lead and headed toward the stairs. The moment he set foot on the stairs, a dramatic scene unfolded. His foot suddenly slipped, and he completely lost his balance. His massive 200-pound body fell backward like a clumsy bear. He only had time to let out a yell before the back of his head slammed hard against the concrete steps. What the hell? The thugs behind him were completely caught off guard. One by one, they slipped and fell like dominoes, instantly collapsing into a heap. In a split second, agonized screams, curses, and the terrified shrieks of the women echoed throughout the hallway. "What the hell is this? The floor is too slippery. So slippery! Which son of a bitch poured oil all over the floor?" The supplies in their hands scattered everywhere, and the scene instantly descended into chaos. The 2 thugs standing guard at the top of the stairs heard the commotion and rushed over. "Boss, are you okay? Don't move, there's oil on the floor!" The bald guy was helped up by his subordinates. He touched the back of his head, grimacing in pain. He looked down and finally realized that the entire staircase was covered in a thick layer of oil. He let out a furious roar. Right as they were in chaos, with everyone's attention drawn to the layer of oil on the ground, my hunting moment arrived. Through the gap in the wall, I silently raised the tactical crossbow in my hands, aiming the cold bolt right at the back of the neck of the thug closest to me. Breath concealment activated. My entire body seemed to blend into the dark ventilation shaft. No heartbeat, no breathing, no presence. A soft swoosh cutting through the air, so faint it was almost inaudible. The bolt left the string, passed precisely through the gap, and instantly buried itself into the back of that thug's neck. He didn't even have time to scream. The thug's body stiffened, then went limp and collapsed. His eyes were wide open, filled with confusion and terror. Fresh blood gushed from the hole in the back of his neck, mixing with the cooking oil on the floor. Lao-san, what's wrong? The accomplice next to him noticed something was off and gave him a shove. The corpse slumped heavily to the ground. Only then did the other see the feathered bolt still trembling slightly in the back of his neck. Enemy attack! It's an ambush, a crossbow! Where are they? Protect the boss! Hurry! Block him! The crowd instantly fell into a panic. Everyone was terrified. They stood back to back, nervously scanning their surroundings, trying to find the enemy hiding in the shadows, but they saw absolutely nothing. In their eyes, the hallway was empty and terrifyingly quiet, and this invisible fear broke them down faster than any visible enemy ever could. Thwip! Another soft sound. Another thug standing at the edge of the group collapsed to the ground. This time, the crossbow bolt had pierced cleanly through his neck. He clutched his throat, trying to cry for help, but could only let out a wheezing, gurgling sound as fresh blood spurted like a fountain through his fingers. Panic spread like a plague among the remaining men. Where is the enemy? Is it a ghost? I don't see anything, boss. Let's get out of here. No, let's go! This place is too creepy! The few remaining thugs were completely losing their minds. They huddled tightly around the bald guy like a flock of frightened quails. Two of the more cowardly ones had even started trembling. The bald guy's face also turned incredibly grim. He had been surviving in the underworld for years, committing murder and arson. He had seen it all, but what was happening today was just too bizarre. The enemy hadn't shown their face from start to finish, yet two of his men had already died silently. It felt as if an invisible pair of eyes was staring at them from the darkness, ready to take their lives at any moment. "Shut the fuck up," the bald guy roared, trying to suppress the fear in his heart. He raised the flamethrower in his hands and bellowed into the empty hallway. "Who is it? Get the hell out here! Hiding like a coward makes you nothing if you've got the guts. Come out and fight me one-on-one." His voice echoed through the hallway, but no one answered him. Instead, it was the third deadly crossbow bolt. This time, the target was a guy holding a fire extinguisher next to the bald boss. The bolt pierced precisely through his eye socket and straight into his brain. Thud. Another body hit the floor. This time, even the bald guy felt his scalp go numb. The opponent's marksmanship was too accurate, practically hitting wherever they aimed. Moreover, every attack targeted someone right next to him. This was clearly a game of cat and mouse, slowly destroying their psychological defenses piece by piece. "Go, hurry up and go! Let's get out of this building!" The bald guy was finally terrified. He lost all will to fight, turning around to run downstairs, but he had forgotten about the lubricant I had prepared for them right under his feet. He ran too hastily, his foot slipped again, and he face-planted hard onto the ground. The flamethrower slipped from his grasp, sliding several meters down the oil-slicked stairs. An opportunity, my eyes lit up. Without hesitation, I slipped out of the ventilation shaft. The effect of the breath concealment skill was still active. My appearance didn't attract anyone's attention. Like a wildcat, I landed without a sound. In a few quick bounds, I rushed over to the flamethrower and snatched it up with one hand. This thing was heavy, at least 40 or 50 pounds. It still carried the residual warmth of the bald guy's grip. It wasn't until I picked up the flamethrower that the surviving thugs finally noticed me. Someone's there. "It's him, he killed Lao-san. Damn it! Where the hell did this kid come from?" They stared at me, completely dumbfounded by my sudden appearance. As for the bald guy, who had just scrambled up from the ground, seeing his weapon fall into my hands made him furious enough to burst. "You little brat! Give that back to me," he roared, charging at me like a mad bull. "Give it back! Keep dreaming!" I sneered, not giving him a chance to get close. I directly swung the nozzle around, aiming right at him. Yeah, I pulled the trigger. A nearly 3-meter-long tongue of orange-red flame, carrying a scorching wave of heat, instantly blasted out. The bald guy let out an agonizing, inhuman shriek. His entire body was instantly swallowed by the flames, turning him into a human torch rolling on the ground in agony. A thick, pungent smell of burning flesh immediately filled the entire hallway. The two remaining thugs, seeing their boss in such a horrific state, were scared out of their wits. They scrambled and crawled, desperately trying to escape downstairs. How could I let them get away? Holding the flamethrower, I turned the nozzle toward their escape route. "Spare me, I don't want to die. Please let me go, it hurts so much." Amidst their desperate pleas, I pulled the trigger once more. The flames devoured everything. The third-floor hallway instantly turned into a sea of fire. The cooking oil acted as the perfect catalyst, and the fire raged violently in the blink of an eye. The two kidnapped women screamed, hiding in the corner, trembling in terror. I paid them no mind. I just coldly watched the thugs struggle and howl in the sea of flames until they were finally reduced to ashes. After dealing with this group, I didn't stop. I carried the flamethrower down the stairs. There were still a few thugs left on the second floor. Hearing the commotion upstairs, they gripped their weapons and nervously poked their heads out. When they saw me, wreathed in the glow of the flames, looking like a demon god descending upon the world, they all froze. "Who are you?" I didn't answer. I used my actions to give them the answer. Fire is the most magnificent funeral in the apocalypse. I went down, floor by floor, using fire to cleanse all the stubbornly resisting thugs. Very soon, the entire building fell silent. Only the crackling of the flames and the heavy stench of roasted meat lingered in the air. I carried the flamethrower back to my door on the 6th floor. The battle just now had consumed quite a bit of my stamina, but more than that, I felt an unprecedented sense of exhilaration. The feeling of holding others' lives in my hands and doing whatever I pleased was truly intoxicating. I opened the door, stepped inside. In the living room, Lin Manman and Qin Ya were waiting in terror. They had clearly heard the agonizing screams and smelled the burning stench from outside. When they saw me carrying that hideous flamethrower, reeking of gunpowder and blood, both women took a frightened step back. "Master, it's taken care of." I casually tossed the flamethrower onto the floor, letting out a heavy thud. "Go draw some hot water. I want to take a bath. Also, put out the fire in the hallway." "I don't like this burning smell," I ordered indifferently. "Put out the fire?" Chinya's face turned pale. "Master, outside. Outside is completely engulfed in flames. What's wrong? Can't do it?" I shot her a glance. "No, it's not that." Kinya hurriedly shook her head. "It's just that we don't have any fire extinguishers." "Who said we don't?" I walked over to the storage room and pulled out 2 large, dry chemical fire extinguishers from the mountain of supplies. These were things I had conveniently bought during my previous shopping spree. I didn't expect them to come in handy so quickly. I tossed the fire extinguishers at their feet. "Now you do. Go. Clean it up before I finish my bath." Watching the 2 women carry the fire extinguishers and tremblingly step out of the door that separated heaven and hell, I nodded in satisfaction. It was time for them to truly see how cruel the outside world was. Only then would they better understand their own worth and realize just how lucky they were to be by my side. I comfortably soaked in the hot tub, letting the water wash away the stench of blood and the fatigue from my body. Recalling the battle just now, I still felt a bit thrilled, especially the feeling of using the flamethrower, destroying and burning everything to the ground. It was truly addictive. Secondly, this thing was much easier to use than a crossbow. The only downside was that it consumed fuel too quickly. I looked at the fuel tank connected to the gun body. It was already half empty. This was a specially formulated fuel. Every bit used was a bit gone. I wonder if the check-in system can generate more. I'll have to use it sparingly. After my bath, I changed into clean clothes and stepped out of the bathroom. In the living room, Chinya and Lin Manman had returned. Both of them looked like they had just been fished out of the water, completely drenched. Their faces and bodies were covered in black soot, looking incredibly disheveled. They were panting heavily, especially Lin Man. This pampered young miss had probably never done such dirty work in her entire life. Right now, she was leaning against the wall, gasping for air, her face deathly pale. Chinya's condition was slightly better, but her eyes were also filled with fear and panic. The floor was covered in black footprints they had tracked in. I frowned. Chinya saw me and hurriedly explained, "Master, the fire outside has been put out. It's just that the hallway is very, very messy." She seemed unable to find the right words to describe it. I didn't even need to think to know. Dozens of charred corpses mixed with dry chemical powder and grease on the floor. The scene was no different from hell. "Good. Go. Wash yourselves clean, then mop the floor." I didn't ask any further, directly issuing a new order. The two women didn't dare utter a single complaint. Dragging their exhausted bodies, one went into the bathroom and the other went to find a mop. Meanwhile, I walked over to the surveillance monitors to check the situation outside. The fire in the hallway had indeed been extinguished, but the scene was a complete mess. The bodies of those thugs had all been burned to a crisp, curled up on the ground, in grotesque shapes, emitting a foul stench. I looked at this scene, feeling completely calm. These people deserved to die. I switched the camera angle to look downstairs. The modified bus was still parked there. The damaged load-bearing pillar looked a bit terrifying, but it wasn't a huge problem. The construction quality of this building was still quite good. Even though I had dealt with the thugs, the commotion they caused was too loud. I noticed that in several other buildings in the residential area, there were quite a few figures moving behind the windows. They were cautiously looking in our direction. I'm afraid my safe house has attracted the attention of some people with ulterior motives, but I don't care. The massacre just now was the best warning. I believe those rats hiding in the dark, before figuring out my true strength, would absolutely not dare to act rashly. What I need to do is take advantage of this precious peaceful time to improve my strength and establish an absolute order, my order. Very quickly, Lin Man and Kinya finished cleaning themselves up and had also mopped the living room. They put on the clean clothes I had found for them. They were spare t-shirts and shorts I had bought previously. They looked a bit loose on them, but that only accentuated their sexy figures. One was youthful and beautiful, the other mature and charming. Indeed, each had her own unique appeal. Master. The two stood side by side, heads bowed like two little students waiting to be disciplined. After experiencing the fire-extinguishing ordeal just now, their awe and fear of me had deepened even further. Maid Lan Man, after witnessing the master's overwhelming strength while slaughtering the thugs, her heart was deeply shaken. Loyalty, +10. Maid Kinya, because the master provided her with shelter and an absolute sense of security, has developed a reliance on the future. Loyalty, +15. Loyalty, +15. The system notifications rang out one after another. I glanced at their statuses. Maidlin Manman, Loyalty 25. Awestruck Maid. Chinya, Loyalty 45. Reliant, not bad. Their loyalty is increasing very quickly, especially Chinya, who is almost at 50. I wonder if, once loyalty reaches a certain level, there will be any special changes. From today onwards, this house will have a few rules. I sat on the sofa, legs crossed, looking at them as I spoke slowly. The two immediately held their breath and listened attentively. First, I am the one who makes the decisions here. My word is the law. You must cooperate completely. Understood? Understood. Second, the two of you must clearly divide your responsibilities from now on. You will be in charge of logistics, including cooking, cleaning, and basic medical care. You also need to keep a close eye on your daughter's condition. Yes. Then, my gaze shifted to Lin Man. Lin Man's heart tensed up, and she instinctively stood up straighter. You! I looked her up and down. This pampered young miss doesn't lift a finger and doesn't know the first thing about hard work. Cooking and cleaning? I probably can't count on you for that. From now on, you will be solely responsible for serving me. Serving you? Lin Manman's face flushed bright red all the way to the tips of her ears. She naturally understood just how many layers of meaning the word serving entailed. What? You don't want to? My voice turned cold. No, it's not that. Lin Man hurriedly shook her head. Her voice as quiet as a mosquito. I'm willing. Very good. I nodded in satisfaction. These are the rules, and also your path to survival. Do well, and you can continue to live peacefully here, with clean water to drink and endless food to eat. If you don't do well, I didn't finish my sentence, but the underlying threat was crystal clear. Now, I'm hungry. I leaned back on the sofa and closed my eyes. Kinya, go cook. I want steak, medium well. Lin Man, come over here and massage my shoulders. Yes, master. Kinya immediately turned and went into the kitchen. Lin Man hesitated for a moment, bit her lip, and still walked up behind me. She raised her slightly trembling small hands and gently placed them on my shoulders, beginning to massage. Her strength was very light. It was hardly a massage. It felt more like she was just scratching an itch for me. But I didn't scold her. Training takes time. Enjoying the service of the campus bell behind me, smelling the mouth-watering aroma of meat wafting from the kitchen, and listening to the faint, agonizing cries from the outside world, I suddenly felt that an apocalypse like this didn't seem so bad after all. My empire was officially established today. Chinya's culinary skills were excellent. The steak was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, cooked to perfection. She even used the available vegetables in the fridge to make a salad. I sat at the dining table, leisurely enjoying my dinner. Lin Manman and Qin Ya stood by my side, like true servants. One was in charge of pouring my wine, the other in charge of serving my food. Their dinner consisted of 2 bowls of instant noodles. This was another rule I had set for them. In this house, even food had a hierarchy. Only I had the right to enjoy the best food. The 2 of them could only eat what I allowed them to. I wanted them to deeply feel the massive gap in our status through every little detail in life. Lin Manman looked at the steak on my plate, unable to stop herself from swallowing hard. Since the apocalypse began, she's had nothing but water and a single bowl of instant noodles. The hunger gnawing at her stomach made her crave the sizzling steak. Noticing her stare, I cut off a small piece of steak. I brought it to her lips with my fork. Want a bite? Lin Manman's eyes immediately lit up. She opened her mouth instinctively, but just as the steak was about to enter her mouth, I pulled it back and ate it myself. Remember this, you have to earn your food with your service. I gave her a meaningful look. Perform well tonight and maybe you'll get a sausage as a reward in the morning. Lin Manman's expression instantly shifted from anticipation to disappointment, finally settling into humiliation and submission. She lowered her head and whispered, "Yes, master." Meanwhile, Kinya stood nearby. Her head was bowed the entire time. She kept her eyes down, as if she hadn't seen a thing. This woman is much smarter than Lin Manman. She understands perfectly that in this situation, silence and obedience are her best options. After dinner, I told Kinya to go to the bedroom and take care of her daughter. The next day, I was woken by frantic knocking at the door. I opened my eyes and glanced at Lin Manman, still fast asleep beside me. There were still tear stains at the corners of her eyes. She looked so pitiful. I paid her no mind. I got up, dressed, and went to the door. A somewhat unexpected face appeared on the screen. It was the manager of our apartment building, a middle-aged man in his 50s. His surname was Wang, and he had a kind face. Right now, he was standing at my door, and behind him were 7 or 8 other neighbors, all of them looking pale and gaunt. "Su, Chen, it's Uncle Wang. I know you're in there. Open up," building manager Wang shouted into the camera. I pressed the talk button and asked coldly, "What is it?" Hearing my voice, building manager Wang clearly let out a sigh of relief. "Ah, Su Chen, thank goodness. You're still alive." He wiped the sweat from his forehead and quickly explained, "Here's the situation. Yesterday, those thugs destroyed the building's fire suppression system and water pipes. Now the entire building has no water. We know you bought a lot of water. Do you think you could share some with us? We're all neighbors, and in a situation like this, we should help each other out." Another moral high ground argument. I'm so sick of hearing it. "And why should I share it with you?" I shot back. My words left building manager Wang speechless. His face turned ugly. A young man behind him couldn't hold back any longer. He cursed into the camera. "What do you mean, hoarding all that water for yourself? You want to watch us all die of thirst? I'm telling you, hand over the water now, or else don't blame us for what happens next." "What happens next?" I asked, amused. We've got the numbers. We'll break down your door," the young man roared. "All bark and no bite." I chuckled. "Go on, try it." With that, I ended the call. I wanted to see where this mob would find the guts to break down my door. Outside, building manager Wang, seeing my firm stance, broke into a cold sweat. "Little Lee, don't be rash." He quickly pulled the young man back. Then he tried to reason with me through the door. "Su Chen, listen to me. We won't take your water for free. We'll trade you for it. Food, canned goods, anything. Just open the door and we can negotiate." Trading food for water, it sounded like a good deal. In this apocalyptic heat, water was far more valuable than food. But I wasn't short on food, and I certainly wasn't short on water. What I lacked was labor, or more accurately, slaves. My empire was just beginning. I needed a group of free laborers to handle some menial tasks for me, like clearing the stinking corpses from the hallway, reinforcing the defenses downstairs, and so on. With that in mind, I opened the call again. "Fine, you can have water." My voice came through the speaker, clear for everyone to hear. "I don't need your food." "Then what do you want?" Building manager Wang asked quickly. "I want you to work for me." "Work?" Everyone was stunned. "That's right," I said slowly. "From this day forward, this building is under my rule. All of you will obey my orders. Whatever I tell you to do, you will do it. In return, I will provide you with a certain amount of food and water each day, enough to ensure your survival." My words were like a bomb dropped on the crowd. "On what grounds? Who the hell do you think you are? Yeah, you want us to slave away for you? Dream on, everyone. Don't listen to him. He's just a selfish bastard. Let's break down the door together." The crowd immediately grew agitated. They had been starving for days. Their tempers were already frayed. Now, provoked by me, they completely lost control. The young man, little Lee, even grabbed an old fire extinguisher from the side and hurled it at my door. Clang, a loud noise echoed. The solid metal door didn't budge. There wasn't even a scratch on it. Everyone was stunned by the sight. Only then did they realize that my door was on a completely different level from their ordinary security doors. I told you, go on and try. My cold voice rang out again. Now, I'm giving you one last chance. Either submit to me, work for me, and earn the right to survive, or you can cling to your ridiculous pride and wait to die of thirst, starve to death, or be killed by the next group of thugs. Choose. With that, I ended the call again, paying them no more attention. I knew they would make the right choice, because hunger and the fear of death will crush any pride or arrogance. Outside the door, a dead silence fell. They looked at each other, their expressions a complex mix of anger, unwillingness, but mostly hesitation and fear. My words were harsh, but they hit their weakest point. They knew very well that without water, they wouldn't last long. The food in the building had already been mostly scavenged. If this continued, death was their only path. And I held the power of life and death over all of them. Building manager Wang's expression shifted constantly. As someone who had lived here for decades, he had some authority among the neighbors. But now, in the face of survival, his authority was worthless. Everyone, calm down. I think what Su Chen said isn't entirely unreasonable. Uncle Wang, why are you defending him? The young man, little Lee, shouted in agitation. He wants to make us his slaves. Slaves? Building manager Wang gave a bitter laugh. Little Lee, look at us now. Are we any different from slaves? When those thugs broke in yesterday, what could we do besides kneel and beg? If Su Chen hadn't dealt with them, we'd all be corpses by now. His words silenced everyone. It was true. The hellish scene from yesterday was still fresh in their minds. Faced with those vicious thugs, their so-called pride was more fragile than paper. At least, if we follow him, we can survive, a middle-aged woman said, her voice choked with sobs. I have a young child at home. I can't just watch him die of thirst. She's right. As long as we can live, what's a little work? I agree. I'm willing to work for Su Chen. With one person taking the lead, soon more and more people began to waver. The instinct for survival won out over everything. In the end, even little Lee, the most agitated one before, lowered his proud head. Building manager Wang saw everyone's reaction and sighed inwardly. He knew the matter was settled. He walked to my door and bowed deeply. His voice was almost pleading. Su Chen Wei, we agree. We are willing to work for you. We just ask that you give us a chance to live. I watched this scene unfold coldly through the security camera. Very good. Everything was going according to my calculations. But I didn't open the door right away. I wanted to let them know that my charity doesn't come so easily. Words are cheap. From this day forward, this building will operate on a point system. A point system? Building manager Wang was stunned. That's right, I explained. I will assign you various tasks. For example, cleaning the hallways, reinforcing defenses, or going out to scavenge for supplies. For each completed task, you will receive a corresponding number of points. Then, you can use those points to exchange for water, food, medicine, and even weapons from me. If anyone breaks the rules or slacks off, I will also deduct their points. When someone's points go into the negative, they will be exiled from this building to fend for themselves. These are the rules. Do you accept? My words left everyone outside the door in shock. They never expected that, in such a short time, I had already devised a complete system of rules. A system that could even be called ruthless. This was no longer simple enslavement. This was the construction of a brand new order. A miniature society with me at its absolute center. Building manager Wang was lost in thought for a moment. A complex light flickered in his eyes. He realized that the young man before him was far more terrifying than he had imagined. His ambition was definitely not just to be some petty king, but they had no other choice. Compared to struggling in chaos, living day to day, an environment with rules and clear objectives like this actually gave them a glimmer of hope for survival. We accept. Building manager Wang took a deep breath and answered on behalf of everyone. Very good. Only then did I press the button to open the door. The heavy metal door slowly swung open. A blast of cold, 18 degrees Celsius air, carrying the aroma of food, rushed out. The survivors outside smelled the aroma and saw the clean environment and the bright lights inside my home. All of their eyes turned red. This was truly paradise. I stood there, in a clean set of loungewear, holding a cup of hot coffee, looking at them nonchalantly. Behind me, Lin Manman, who had just woken up, was wearing a loose t-shirt that revealed her long, slender legs. She was sleepily preparing my breakfast. Meanwhile, Chinya was holding her daughter, whose fever had broken, and curiously peeking outside. She stood quietly to the side. Damn, this scene was an everyday occurrence for the women behind me, but for the survivors outside the door, it delivered an incomparable visual and psychological shock. Why? Why do we have to struggle to survive outside like dogs, while you get to enjoy air conditioning, eat your fill, and have beautiful women serving you inside? Envy, admiration, resentment. All sorts of emotions swirled in their hearts, but in the end, they all transformed into a deeper reverence and fear of me. They finally and completely understood that I and they were no longer in the same world. Building Manager Wang. I spoke, breaking the silence. Yes, I'm here, Building Manager Wang answered hastily. From this day forward, you will be their manager. You'll be in charge of taking role, assigning tasks, and recording points. You will report directly to me. I pointed at him. Me? Building Manager Wang was stunned. Then, a look of ecstatic joy spread across his face. He understood this was the power I was granting him in the new order. He would be second to one and above all others. Mr. Su, I guarantee I will complete my duties. He immediately changed his form of address, speaking to me with reverence. Very good, I nodded. Now, your first task. I pointed to the corpses in the hallway, which had already begun to decompose and stink. Clean up all this trash and throw it downstairs. After you're done, each of you can come to me to receive 500 milliliters of water and 1 compressed biscuit. This is your first payment. 500 milliliters and 1 compressed biscuit. This reward, before the apocalypse, even a beggar on the street might have scoffed at it. But now, to this group of people who had been starving for 2 days, their lips dry and cracked, it was like rain in a drought. Thank you, Mr. Su. Mr. Su, you're a good person. Suppressed cheers erupted from the crowd. Everyone looked at me with eyes full of gratitude. Even little Lee, the one who had the biggest problem with me before, now kept his head down, not daring to say another word. Human nature is just like that. Give them a slap, then give them a piece of candy, and they'll be eternally grateful to you. Uncle Wang, you get them organized. I left everything to Building Manager Wang and prepared to close the door. Wait, Mr. Su, there's something else. We need tools to clean up the bodies. We don't have anything. I thought for a moment. I found some work safety gear I'd bought online before in my storage. A dozen pairs of gloves, a few masks, and several large contractor bags used for construction debris. I tossed these things to Building Manager Wang. Use these for now. If it's not enough, go down to the bus yourselves and find the weapons those thugs had. They should be usable. Yes, thank you, Mr. Su. Building Manager Wang, as if he'd found a treasure, hurriedly called everyone to start working. Watching them scramble, even arguing over a single pair of gloves, I shook my head and closed the door. The world became quiet again. Master, breakfast is ready. Lin Manman approached, carrying a plate of fried eggs and bacon. I thought for a moment. I found some work safety gear I'd bought online before in my storage. A dozen pairs of gloves, a few masks, and several large contractor bags used for construction debris. I tossed these things to Building Manager Wang. After our deep exchange last night, her attitude toward me has clearly become much more submissive and natural. Although there's still a hint of shyness and fear in her eyes, that deep-seated resistance is gone. Yeah. I sat at the dining table and started eating breakfast. Chinya also walked over, carrying her daughter. The little girl's name is Kiki. After her severe illness, her spirits have improved a lot. She opened her big, dark eyes, looking at me curiously. Kiki, say hi to the nice uncle? Chinya said softly to her daughter. The little girl was a bit timid. Hiding in Chinya's embrace, she mumbled, Uncle, call me Master. I corrected her without even looking up. Chinya stiffened. She didn't expect me to be so ruthless even to a child. Master. She looked at me with pleading eyes. I've already said it. In this house, my word is the law. I put down my knife and fork, my gaze turning cold. You are my servant. Your daughter is naturally my property as well. The first thing she needs to learn is to know her place. Chinya's face instantly turned pale, her eyes red. But when she met my cold stare, she ultimately chose to submit. She turned her head, holding her daughter, her voice trembling. Kiki, be a good girl. Call him master. 5-year-old Kiki didn't understand what master meant, but she could feel her mother's sadness and fear. She burst into loud tears. All right, enough. I waved my hand, a bit impatiently. We'll leave it at that for today. Yeah. Remember this. I don't want to repeat myself. Yes, master. Chinya held her sobbing daughter and quietly stepped aside. I looked at her, enduring the humiliation, feeling absolutely no pity in my heart. What I want is absolute submission. Anyone or anything that dares to challenge my authority must be nipped in the bud, even if it's just a title. After breakfast, I opened the system interface, ready for today's check-in. Ding! Detected that the master has successfully subdued the first group of survivors and established preliminary order. Achievement unlocked. Emerging overlord. Special check-in activated. Special check-in rewards have been distributed. Please choose one of the following 3 options. Option A, Servant Loyalty Breakthrough Card, can designate one servant to instantly increase their loyalty to 60 points absolute loyalty, with a very small chance to awaken a special ability. Option B, Basic Gene Optimization Fluid, comprehensively optimizes the master's genes, greatly increasing strength, speed, and reaction time, while granting basic self-healing abilities. Option C, one solar-powered satellite reconnaissance drone. It can cover a 50-kilometer radius. It features high-definition imaging and infrared detection. Looking at these 3 golden, glowing options, my breathing grew a little heavy. As expected of a special check-in, the reward quality is leagues above the regular ones. These 3 options, I want every single one of them. Option C, the reconnaissance drone. In the apocalypse, it's basically a map hack. A 50-kilometer radius means most of the city would be under my surveillance. Where the supplies are, where the survivors are, where the dangers lie, I'd know it all. Option B, the Gene Optimization Fluid. This is a direct upgrade to my own power. Strength, speed, reflexes. These are all the basics for surviving the apocalypse. More importantly, the basic self-healing ability means I'd have much higher survivability and margin for error. As for option A, my eyes swept over Linmanman and Kinya. Loyalty directly increases to 60, reaching the level of absolute loyalty. This means I'd have a subordinate who would absolutely never betray me, someone I could trust completely. What's even more tempting is there's also a very small chance of awakening a special ability, an Esper power. This is the standard setup for a protagonist's crew in web novels. If my maid could awaken an ability, then her value would far exceed that of a regular nanny or nurse. I was torn. All 3 options were hard to pass up, but rules are rules. I can only choose one. After a brief moment of thought, I finally made my decision. The drone is good, but at this stage, I have no plans to go out and explore, so its usefulness is limited. The gene optimization fluid could enhance me, but my physique has already been enhanced 5-fold. It's enough for now. But an absolutely loyal subordinate with the potential to gain an Esper power, the future benefits are immeasurable. I choose A, Maid Loyalty Breakthrough Card. Selection successful. Please designate the target. My gaze hesitated between Kinya and Linmanman. Linmanman is young and beautiful, a top-tier eye candy. But other than that, she doesn't seem to have any other merits. Kinya, on the other hand, is mature and calm. She's meticulous, and she's a nurse. Her utility is much higher. More importantly, she has a daughter as a weakness. She's easier to control. The answer was obvious. Designate target, Kinya. Designation successful. Using the Maid Loyalty Breakthrough card. As soon as the words fell, I saw Kinya, who was standing nearby, tremble slightly. Kinya's body only trembled for a moment before returning to normal. On the surface, she didn't seem to have changed at all, but when I looked at her again, I could clearly feel that the way she looked at me was completely different. If her eyes were previously filled with fear, reliance, and a hint of hidden humiliation, then now, her eyes held nothing but fanaticism, reverence, and unreserved loyalty. It was the look of a zealot gazing up at their god, master. She took the initiative to step forward, slowly kneeling on one knee in front of me. Then, bowing her head, she spoke in an incredibly devout tone. My life and my daughter's life, from this moment on, belong entirely to you. Your will is my sole reason for existence. Even Linmanman, standing to the side, was stunned. She didn't understand why, after just a few minutes, Chinya seemed like a completely different person. Her attitude towards me had become like this. You could even call it fanatical. Ding. Maid Chinya's loyalty has increased to 60, loyal unto death. Ding. Detected that, Maid Chinya's. Willpower and loyalty have broken through the critical threshold. Awakening special ability. Awakening successful. Congratulations, your Maid Chinya has awakened an E-rank ability. Touch of Frost, the system's notification startled me. She actually awakened even though it's only the lowest E-rank ability. It's enough to make me ecstatic. This means my choice was correct. Touch of Frost. I looked at Kinya kneeling on the floor and asked, "What's your ability? Show me." "Yes, master." Kinya looked up, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She seemed to find the changes in her body very novel as well. She held out her right hand and opened her palm. A miraculous scene unfolded. A layer of visible white mist slowly rose from her palm. The surrounding temperature suddenly dropped. I could even see tiny ice crystals condensing in the air above her hand. She gently placed her hand on the solid wood dining table next to her. Crack! 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 Also, a soft, cracking sound echoed. Centered around her palm, a thin layer of white frost rapidly spread across the table. In just a few seconds, that section of the table was completely frozen solid. I reached out and touched it, hard as iron. Not bad, I nodded in satisfaction. Even though it's only an E-rank ability, and its offensive power is practically zero, its practicality is incredibly high. In this extreme heat apocalypse, the ability to create cold air and frost out of thin air is truly a god-tier skill. This means that from now on, even without AC, I can enjoy the cool air anytime, anywhere. More importantly, she can make ice cubes. Ice in this current world is a hard currency, more precious than gold or diamonds. I could already picture countless survivors fighting tooth and nail, bleeding out just for a single ice cube from my hand. "Master," Akinya looked at her hand, too overwhelmed with emotion to speak. "What happened to me? As long as you are loyal enough to me, you will become even stronger in the future." "Thank you for your grace, Master." Kinya believed in me even more, her gaze growing increasingly fanatical. Meanwhile, Lin Manman, who was standing nearby, saw Kinya's miraculous ability to create ice out of thin air and heard what I said. She was completely dumbfounded. Her jaw dropped as she looked at Kinya, then back at me. By staying by my side, she wouldn't just get food and safety, she also had the chance to become a superhuman like Chinya Ding. Maid Lin Manman, having witnessed her companion awaken an ability, has developed intense worship and desire for her master. Loyalty plus 15, I glanced at her status. Maid Lin Manman. Loyalty, 40 worship, excellent. 2 birds with 1 stone. 1 loyalty breakthrough card didn't just get me an esper, it also boosted the motivation of my other maid. This was a massive profit. Get up. I told Kinya to stand up. From now on, your daily task, aside from cooking and cleaning, is to make ice cubes. I want you to fill up that storage room in the shortest time possible. I pointed to the small 5-square-meter room. Yes, master. I guarantee I'll complete the task. Kinya immediately accepted the order, eager to go make ice. Wait, I called her back. Other than me, you are not to show this ability to anyone else, not even your daughter. Understood? Yes, master. I understand. Chinya nodded solemnly. An innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. Before having absolute power, revealing your trump card is incredibly stupid. After sending Chinya off, I looked at Lin Manman, who was still in shock. You want this kind of power too? I asked. Lin Manman snapped back to reality, looking at me and nodding vigorously, her eyes shining with an unprecedented light. Then it depends on your future performance. I patted her cheek lightly. Opportunities are for the most obedient maids and the ones who know how to serve their master best. I understand, master. I will definitely perform well, Lin Manman hurriedly promised. Seeing both maids brimming with enthusiasm, I was in a great mood. Just then, the surveillance system suddenly let out a soft alarm. I walked over to the monitor and pulled up the feed. I saw that on the other side of the residential complex, a swift, dark figure suddenly appeared on the rooftop of a building. The figure's speed was incredibly fast, weaving through the obstacles on the roof as if walking on flat ground. The movements were clean and decisive, like a healthy cheetah. She seemed to be running away from something. Very quickly, I found out what she was running from. Behind her, 3 giant cockroaches appeared. That's right, cockroaches. Each one was the size of a calf. Their pitch-black, hard shells gleamed with a metallic luster under the sun. Their 6 long arthropod legs scuttled rapidly across the ground, making a rustling sound. Even through the screen, it made my scalp tingle. Mutated creatures. The term immediately popped into my head. It seems the extreme heat apocalypse brought not only scorching temperatures but also species mutation. The dark figure was clearly no match for these 3 mutated roaches. She was forced back continuously and was quickly cornered at the edge of the roof. Just as she was about to be caught by those disgusting monsters suddenly, she did something that even surprised me. She actually leaped into the air, jumping straight from the roof of this building to the roof of the adjacent building. The gap between the 2 buildings was at least 7 or 8 meters wide, yet she managed to clear it. Although her landing was a bit rough, rolling a few times before steadying herself, this astonishing jump made me incredibly curious about her identity. Who exactly is she? I zoomed the surveillance camera in on the dark figure's face. It was a heroic yet incredibly delicate face. Neat short hair, a high straight nose, and tightly pursed lips. The most captivating feature was her eyes. Bright, resolute, and filled with an indomitable will. Even now, at the top, unyielding, a predator. Even in a desperate situation, there wasn't a hint of fear or panic in her eyes. On her body, she wore a torn police uniform. Violent cop. The term instantly popped into my head. This woman is very strong. That was my first impression of her. Whether it was her explosive leg strength that far exceeded a normal person's, or her calmness and decisiveness when facing 3 mutated monsters, it all proved she was absolutely no ordinary person. She was very likely an Esper too, or an elite who had undergone special training. Those 3 mutated roaches clearly had no intention of letting her go. They also leaped from the roof, their massive bodies tracing a parabola in the air before crashing heavily onto the other building's rooftop. Boom! The concrete floor of the roof was smashed into several shallow craters by their impact. Seeing this, the woman didn't hesitate. She turned and ran toward the stairwell. She was very smart. She knew that fighting these monsters on a spacious rooftop would put her at a disadvantage. In a narrow stairwell, however, she could utilize her agility. Sure enough, as soon as she entered the stairwell, her speed advantage showed. Like a gust of wind, she rapidly descended. Meanwhile, the 3 mutated roaches, due to their massive size, had their movement severely restricted in the narrow stairwell. Their speed noticeably slowed down. The woman quickly left them in the dust, dashing out of the building's main entrance. Without looking back, she ran toward our building. Her target was me. I raised an eyebrow and immediately switched the camera feed to look downstairs. Manager Wang was leading that group of survivors, clearing the corpses and obstacles at the entrance. Everyone was working very enthusiastically. The sudden appearance of the woman and the 3 giant roaches hot on her heels scared the living daylights out of everyone. What the hell is that? Monsters run. The crowd instantly fell into chaos. People threw away their tools, screaming and fleeing into the stairwell. Don't panic, stand your ground. Manager Wang was an experienced man after all. He suppressed his fear and yelled at everyone, but it was useless. In the face of terror from unknown monsters, his authority wasn't worth a damn. Seeing the 3 mutated roaches getting closer and closer, a nauseating, foul stench spread through the air. Right at this critical life-or-death moment, the policewoman made her move. She drew a pistol from her waist, spun around, aimed at the fastest mutated roach in the front, and fired 3 shots in rapid succession without hesitation. Bang! The crisp gunshots rang out in the quiet residential complex, sounding especially deafening. The 3 bullets accurately hit the mutated roach's head, but a horrifying scene unfolded. The bullet struck its pitch-black armored shell, yet only sparked a few flashes of light, emitting a sharp, clanging sound. They didn't even leave a scratch. The hardness of that armor was comparable to steel plates. The policewoman cursed under her breath, her eyes turning grave. Physical attacks. Ineffective. The mutated roach was completely enraged by her actions. It let out an ear-piercing screech, its speed suddenly surging. Its 2 massive front legs, like scythes, swung viciously toward the policewoman's head. The policewoman's reflexes were incredibly fast. With a perilous backward bend, she narrowly dodged the fatal blow. The sharp front leg practically grazed the tip of her nose. The strong gust of wind it generated stung her cheeks. She used the momentum to roll away, putting some distance between herself and the monster. But the other 2 mutated roaches had already flanked her from the left and right, completely cutting off her escape route. She was trapped in a dead end. The survivors downstairs were so terrified by this sight that their legs gave out. Every single one of them was pale as a ghost. Manager Wang closed his eyes in despair. He knew It was over. Once this woman was dealt with, the next targets for those three monsters would be them, and they were completely unarmed. They could only wait to be slaughtered. Exactly. Just sit tight. I sat comfortably in my air-conditioned room, watching through the surveillance cameras, coldly observing everything happening downstairs. Lin Manman and Kinya also leaned in close. When they saw the ugly, giant roaches on the screen, both of them turned pale with fright, letting out terrified screams. "Save, please, save them!" Kenya hugged her daughter, her voice trembling. She really was still too kind-hearted. "Why should I save them?" I asked back. "Whether they live or die, what does it have to do with me?" But that policewoman ran toward us to lure the monsters away. "Besides, if you let her die, those monsters will definitely break into the building," Chinya said anxiously. "Break in?" I chuckled. "You think a few bugs can break through my door?" Kenya fell silent. She knew I was telling the truth. The sturdiness of this safe house was far beyond her imagination. As for that policewoman, I stroked my chin looking at the woman on the screen. Even though she was surrounded, her eyes remained resolute, showing no intention of giving up. A meaningful smirk tugged at the corner of my mouth. Her life is mine. I'm the only one who gets to decide her fate. With that, I stood up and pulled that vicious flamethrower out of my system space. "You two stay in the house. Don't go anywhere." I hoisted the flamethrower onto my shoulder, opened the heavy metal door, and stepped outside. The cool 18-degree air was instantly swallowed by the scorching 60-plus-degree heat outside. A wave of blistering heat hit my face, but my enhanced body already had a certain level of resistance to this extreme temperature. Although it still felt a bit hot, it was completely within a tolerable range. I stood at the 6th-floor entrance, looking down from above at the completely one-sided battle in the courtyard below. My appearance immediately drew everyone's attention. Whether it was the despairing survivors or the struggling policewoman, they all instinctively looked up at me. When they saw the bizarre-looking flamethrower resting on my shoulder, looks of sheer astonishment appeared on everyone's faces. "What kind of weapon is that?" "It's Mr. Su. Mr. Su is out, save us the survivors!" As if seeing their savior, instantly erupted into cheers of surviving a disaster. The policewoman was also stunned. She looked at me, her eyes full of vigilance and doubt. She didn't understand why a heavily armed, mysterious-looking man like me would suddenly appear in this building. The three mutated roaches seemed to sense the threat coming from me as well. They simultaneously stopped attacking the policewoman and turned their heads, glaring at me intently with their ugly compound eyes. They let out threatening hisses, as if warning me not to meddle in the woman's business. "Disgusting bugs." I looked at them, a trace of disgust showing on my face. "The creatures I hate the most are cockroaches, especially cockroaches that have been magnified hundreds of times." I didn't waste any words. I aimed the nozzle of the flamethrower straight down. "Everyone, get out of the way." My cold voice echoed across the courtyard. The survivors, as if granted amnesty, scrambled and fled into the corners. The policewoman hesitated for a moment, but quickly backed away as well, keeping a safe distance from me. "Very good, the area is clear. Then, let the hunt begin." Whoosh! A massive fire dragon roared out from the 6th-floor window, carrying the momentum to incinerate everything in its path, descending like divine punishment from the heavens, completely engulfing the three mutated roaches in the courtyard. Agonizing shrieks, so horrific they didn't sound like they came from living creatures, instantly rang out. The three monsters that were just acting so arrogant and invincible were instantly swallowed by the sea of fire. They thrashed wildly, slamming into the ground and the walls, desperately trying to put out the flames on their bodies. But it was useless. The flamethrower's specially formulated fuel, mixed with the foul-smelling fluid oozing from beneath their shells, created the most terrifying combustible catalyst. The fire only burned fiercer and brighter. A pungent, sickening stench of burning flesh, even stronger and more disgusting than before, filled the air. "Take this!" Everyone downstairs was dead silent. Their jaws dropped as they looked up at me standing at the 6th-floor window, wielding the flamethrower like a god. Their eyes were filled with shock and awe. Just moments ago, the terrifying monsters that the policewoman couldn't even scratch with her pistol were so easily annihilated in front of me. Is this Mr. Su's true power? Manager Wang was so agitated that his whole body trembled. He even had the urge to kneel down and kowtow to me. That young guy, Xiao Li, was so terrified he collapsed onto the ground, his face pale. Only now did he truly realize how stupid and ridiculous it was for him to try and challenge my authority before. As for the policewoman, the shock she experienced was immense. She stared blankly as the three monsters gradually turned to ash in the flames, then looked back at me, her eyes filled with disbelief. As someone in the system, she had seen all sorts of advanced weaponry and equipment, but a personal flamethrower with such terrifying power and bizarre design like the one in my hands was a first for her. This man. What exactly is his background? A few minutes later, the struggles of the three mutated roaches finally ceased. They were completely reduced to a pile of black, smoking ash. Only a few vague outlines remained, barely distinguishable as their original shapes. I put away the flamethrower, turned around, and prepared to head back inside. "Stop right there!" The policewoman's clear, forceful voice came from behind me. I stopped and turned around, looking at her. She had entered the stairwell and was standing on the steps, looking up at me. There was some dirt on her face, and her uniform was torn in a few places, but it couldn't hide her valiant demeanor. "Who are you?" she asked, her tone full of vigilance and scrutiny. "You don't have the right to ask me that," I replied coldly. "The weapon in your hands is contraband." She frowned. "According to regulations, I must—" "Regulations?" As if I had just heard a joke, I cut her off. "Girl, are you still dreaming? Go outside and take a look. What kind of world do you think this is now? Those regulations of yours became scrap paper a long time ago." A flash of anger crossed the policewoman's face. She clearly couldn't accept that the order and law she had always upheld were being so contemptuously trampled by me. No matter what kind of world it is now, as long as I'm wearing this uniform, I have a duty to protect justice and order. Now, I order you to drop your weapon immediately and come with me for an investigation. As she spoke, she pulled a pair of cold handcuffs from her waist. Looking at her self-righteous, reckless demeanor, I actually burst out laughing. "Justice? Order? What a naive, adorable girl. It seems you still don't understand who's the boss around here." I didn't waste any more breath on her. I jumped straight down from the 6th-floor stairwell. My enhanced body gave me explosive strength and balance far beyond that of a normal person. From a height of nearly 10 meters, I landed steadily right in front of her without making a single sound. The policewoman was startled by my astonishing jump. She instinctively took a step back, raising her pistol and aiming it at me. "Don't move. Take one more step and I'll shoot," she warned sternly. I ignored the toy in her hand, a thing completely harmless to me, and stepped closer to her, one step at a time. "I'll give you two choices." I walked right up to her, looking down at her from above, and spoke in a tone that brooked no argument. "First, just like them, submit to me, become my subject, work for me. See for yourself." I pointed at the survivors downstairs, who were looking at me with godlike reverence. Second, I paused, reaching out to grab the gun in her hand. With a gentle squeeze, the pistol made of refined steel crumpled like a fragile cracker in my hand, crushed into a twisted piece of scrap metal. The policewoman's pupil shrank violently. She stared at the mangled scrap metal in my hand, a look of sheer terror appearing on her face for the first time. Crushing a pistol with his bare hand, is this even a power a human can possess? Die! I slowly spat out the final word. The entire stairwell instantly plunged into a deathly silence. The policewoman stared at me blankly, her body beginning to tremble slightly from the extreme shock and fear. The combat skills she was so proud of, the gun she relied on for survival, in the face of this man's inhuman strength, they all became ridiculous and useless. Everything she had believed in, up until now, was mercilessly crushed by me in this very moment. "Who in the world are you?" she asked, trembling. "I am the god here." I tossed aside the scrap metal in my hand and grabbed her by the chin, forcing her to look up. "Look me in the eyes. Now, tell me your choice. Submit or die."